I mean, we work on getting people a holiday, but the holiday is never really the ultimate thing. It's the ability, like that's the test. Can you step away from your business and everything doesn't collapse? That's our ultimate measure of success when it comes to business. So yeah, getting some of the people that we've worked with maternity leave when they run their own business, completely unplugged time off, and then also supporting them to do, more bird work. We've got someone who wants to do more speaking gigs because she wants to get her message more out there. So now she travels more because she doesn't have to worry about being on the ground running her business.
Hello and welcome to the Healthy Business Lab, where we interview allied health business owners to share insights, learnings for others in the space as well. And we're also interviewing coaches who work with business owners in the space as well. And today I'm super excited to have Alexandra Sim from the Efficiency Lab on the call today, who spans both those backgrounds. Welcome to the call today.
Thank you for having me. This is exciting.
It is indeed. And I'm super excited to share your insights. Again, we've known each other for a number of years now. And first off, as a allied health practice owner, and more recently, now you've moved into consulting space. I'd love for you to share with the listeners a bit about your background and your journey and your evolution in this space.
So, do you start from the front to the back or back to front? So, currently I run the Efficiency Lab. We're working with small businesses to improve efficiency in their businesses, so primarily health businesses, like you said. Not always, but usually it's allied health. But with the idea that, yes, automations and systems and all that is a lot of what we do, but there's usually some sort of passion or vision behind every business, right? So, if you sort of backtrack, I've been in the chiropractic profession for, I think we're on 19 years now. You lose track after a while, right? I'm not a chiropractor, so I specifically took the role of bought a practice and built it up, brought in associates, brought in teams. So I really spent a lot of time making sure our team were really happy. They were really supported. The structure of the business was there so that I didn't have to be on all the time. And I did that at a point where I had young children, the things that so many people do, and they realize they want something different in life. So that's sort of what got me along that path. And then I ended up building up practices and selling them. Then it got to this point, I said, I'm going to help other businesses make sure they're running really successful practices. So it did start with chiropractic practices, but now it's expanded out to consulting people in general that are passionate and happy and healthy business owners that want more.
I love that. And again, so many multifaceted background. Again, when you're spanning 20 years, there's bound to be a number of different things that we can tap into. But I guess even as you touched upon there, wearing the many hats of business owner, mum, household, businesses, and running all those, spinning a lot of those plates on as you've gone. I'd love for you to sort of just delve into, always like to share with people things that have worked, or as far as just looking after ourselves in those times as well. And again, we'll obviously talk a bit more about how we've got systems and processes and the like, especially from the business angle. But I'd love for you to just share the things that you've done or tried over the years that have sort of just helped you look after yourself as a business owner in living a hectic life.
Yeah, well, I mean, it'd be really silly of us if we didn't lean on what we've got immediately available to us, right? So chiropractic obviously has been a huge thing in terms of health support and looking after my body. I think though often the biggest challenge is that mental challenge and realizing you don't have to do it all, which sometimes is very confronting for a lot of us. We'd often use the analogy of, if you think of your business like a bus, say, we're going to help people get people in the right seats. So get the right people on the bus in the right seats, but you have to have someone driving. So really having to step out from the business owners who's trying to go and sit in all the empty seats all the time. You've got to get to the front of the bus, see what you can see, and make sure someone's actually directing where you're going, right? And so it's really that mindset of going, okay, hang on, I'm going to sit back for a second and go, what has to have to relieve the business of me? Whereas often we get the other way around. We get to the point of like burnout and all these things and then go, I don't know where to go from here. I think ultimately we have to see that in the first place. And back to your question, in that case, it's the people around you, right? It's the community. It's the way that you're looking at the world. It's being able to call you up, for example. So you're one of the people that I lent on at that time and said, like, help me get my finances in order, like I can't do everything and I need that support to bring in. So I think that's probably the most important thing.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm hearing a lot of that idea of giving time, giving space. And by doing that, you're getting out of the seats at the back and you sort of bring yourself at the front. But again, by doing that, it gives you that space to see things better, open up. But I do want to sort of touch back to that idea again. Let's not just gloss over the chiropractic stuff of doing things to look after ourselves. Because whenever I think of chiropractic and having access to chiropractic work over the years, and you said the mental challenge you got, I always sort of equate it to, well, my chiropractic helps make sure that the mental work that I'm doing transmits throughout the body. So I'd love for you to sort of talk to that a little bit as far as you plug the expertise and the background that you've learnt from managing chiropractic businesses and the like. And no doubt you've had plenty of business owner clients in that space as well. By helping them in that space, it's actually flowed on to them looking after themselves better, their body being better, their mind being better. I'd love for you to share some of the benefits that you've seen from that even process.
I think that's probably the most important thing, and maybe even the simplest thing that we often overlook. So I listened to a podcast you did with another chiropractor recently, and she was talking about, in chiropractic, we're talking about making sure the brain and the body are talking to each other. So if we can look at a business and say, all right, if that's how you see the world, like back to the bus analogy, you're looking out, this is what you're seeing, this is the lens that you see the world through, and that's what you're doing with the people that you see in practice, then how do we bring that philosophy into the business so that it makes it so much easier? Because you're just now looking at one set of philosophy. You're not trying to run your business differently to how you're running that, the way that you're looking after your people that you see. I often say people that you see because I don't say patients, and then it gets really confusing for people. That's what I'm referring to. I think going, all right, are the brain and body communicating well? How do we pick that concept up and put it into business so that it's really easy? The vision and strategy of the business flowing through to our team, for example. In chiropractic as well, there's this idea that the body is intelligent, knows how to heal itself, and a lot of allied health practitioners see health the same way, right? So if we take that and we apply that to our businesses, again, we're not having to change the concepts that we're using in practice and then putting something different into business. We can say, all right, if that's the case, then we also have to assume every one of our team members are intelligent and go, all right, so everything they're doing, they're doing it for a reason. They're doing it. Body has homeostasis. It's trying to rebalance, recalibrate all the time. What are your team doing? Like maybe you see the symptoms of a problem that they're coming up with and you're banging your head going, that's not what I wanted you to do. But you take that same concept and say, hang on a second, they're doing this for a smart reason. I may not understand it yet, but they're trying to recalibrate. They're trying to do what they can with the best knowledge they have. So yes, back to your question, in terms of the way that we see the world through the chiropractic lens is just taking these basic health concepts and then bringing it back into your business actually makes life a whole lot simpler. And it's the same with any other business. So you speak to, I'm working with like a martial arts studio at the moment. So how do you see the world? Like, what's your philosophy behind what you do? So we bring those concepts that he's teaching his students back into the business, and all of a sudden business becomes a whole lot easier. So yes, I love chiropractic, and like that's like my life is chiropractic. Like I say, every one of my family, the people I consider family, all my friends, they're within that profession. But it's because it's easy, right? We're aligning values.
I love that, and I love that notion of, again, it's just then plays forward into how do you see the world, which is great. And I love you're referencing, I think Dr. Amy Norman was probably the episode that you touched upon there a little bit before. Highly recommend people checking that one out as well. But what I'd like to sort of transition now, you're touching on some of those business side of things. I'd love to we always love to talk experiments here, and I love your business also has a bit of a lab in there. We've got the Healthy Business Lab. You've got the Efficiency Lab, and I know that, you're always looking at things differently. You've already touched upon that a little bit already, but in all your time in business, from both the chiropractic side and the coaching side, some of the experiments that you've done over the years that you've got plenty of learnings from, I'd love for you to share a couple of those.
Yeah, and I'm sure with you, the lab part is quite intentional, right? Because you want it to be an experiment. You want it to come to these different outcomes that you didn't think might be possible, right? Classic
usually the best ones. Yeah, 100%. And you hit the nail on the head as far as, the lab for us. Yeah, again, I love language and the connotations of experimenting in business. Because I know when I didn't think of business in that way, I got sort of hung up on, it's not right or wrong. And as I've basically eradicated those from my vocabulary, the right and wrong, it's trying, it's experimenting, it's doing these things. And therefore, then it just tweaked my mind to go, okay, it's not a yes, no, right, wrong, good, bad. It's not these things. It's just like an experiment that I can evolve. And even some historical stuff, I'm interested in your insights, like test and measure. It has connotations that are similar to experimentation, but I always struggled with that. Test and measure, it sort of played to my financial stuff. I kind of get the numbers and the measurement because I do encourage that in a certain way, but it still felt a bit rigid. So love for you to
And
talk more to that and along with sharing some of your experiences.
well, of course, depending on how you view it, we've had epic fails as well. That's the whole part of experimenting. But at the end of the day, you go, well, we learned something from that. That's right.
You blow up the test tube and
that's right.
That's what happens.
Yeah, I think there's this, when you have an idea, right, you go forth and you do it and it is an experiment. But also I think if you have the grounding to fall back on the data, then that adds that level of stability without feeling like you're just throwing spaghetti at the wall, right? And so that's often sort of the balance that we'd take, is to say, okay, so if we're doing a time tracking, for example, there's no right or wrong how you're spending your time. We're not doing it to micromanage you or your team. Like, we just want to know how you're spending your time. You get so much resistance with people time tracking, as you would with people going through bank accounts. Like, but we look at the data and we go, okay, well, this is what it's telling us, and that gives us a stable foundation and kind of a baseline to then go, all right, when we experiment and we come back and look at this, we get to see what's changed. So we can't really label it as that failed or that worked. It's like, what did it change? Did it change the things that we want it to, right?
Yeah.
And I think the other thing then with experimenting is it depends on what question you're asking every single time. And often with health professionals, the thing that they are amazing at, it sort of sets them apart, is asking the question like, what more can I do for my people? Like this, they're all in on service. And I think you have to switch that question if you want to scale or grow your business. And sometimes we forget to do that. So instead of asking, if you flip that on your head and say, okay, what does my team need to be able to serve the people really well, is very different to what do I need from my team so I can serve the people very well. And so I think if we change the questions we're asking, we start to then experiment. So if we're saying, all right, well, actually, what does my team need for people to be served better and more people to be served better? I actually have to then experiment with that. So if I give them more nurturing, if I give them more procedures, if I give them more communication or time or less, like, do I need to step back a little bit? And that's probably the biggest learning we've had, is that managing team happiness, business culture. I think the biggest experiment I made, and it thankfully paid off, was I stepped out of all of the day-to-day of the business. So I was still doing a lot of support work within the business, desk work, reception sort of stuff as well. And it seems expensive to hire someone else to do that. And it was absolutely terrifying. But instead I thought, what's the highest quality use of my time? It's actually then really nurturing those team members. And it seems like overkill, because so many businesses go, I don't want more meetings. I didn't do this to manage people. But if I can get someone else to do a 4-hour shift and I spend 1 hour, like after the shift, debriefing with them, and that's only to start with, right? Like eventually you build those foundations, and I'm not spending an hour a day with anyone anymore, right? And so I think being able to just ask a different question, go, now I'm going to test it. Do they need 10 minutes of my time? Do they need a debrief? Do they need a before shift sort of setup? Like, what tools do they need? I think that's kind of the biggest shift we made.
I love that. And where my mind's just coming circling back to the changing the questions. And by the sounds of that, it's also just playing with some of those questions in a way to go, which questions are going to work with which people as well. So even going back to the micro components of that, you're experimenting with the questions or the phraseology or the way that you're going about that, or even the perspective that you're looking at it with, to end up getting the outcomes that you're seeking for your example there, being able to step out of the day-to-day. So I love you sort of even just go down into that little bit more detail there of how do you go about framing your questions in relation to, the bigger picture of what you're trying to achieve.
Do a little background. So Profit First was written by Mike McAllowitz. He also has a book called Clockwork, which I can see on your shelf right behind you. You can be a certified clockwork professional similar to Profit First. I'm one of those. I'm the only one in Australia at the time of this recording. And one of the concepts that we use in Clockwork is about stepping out from the day-to-day. So when we look at Clockwork, one of the concepts we use is called the QBR. I'm not going to go into it, but it's basically like, what does your business do above and beyond what every other sort of standard, like what sets you apart? Basically, this is the question it's asking. In one of our chiropractic practices that I used to own, our QBR, like our thing that set us apart, was the quality of questions we're asking. It wasn't about chiropractic or anything like that. Like our main thing was, how do we ask the best quality questions? And so ultimately we came up with a document of what does a good quality question look like? And so it's funny you ask that, because we have that very well documented. However, to quickly summarize, it's going to be different for everyone. We ask questions without concern for the answer. So it's not so much about the answer, it's about the thought process. We ask questions without expectation, because sometimes we can assume someone's going to give a certain answer, which means we don't remain curious. We ask a question that someone wants to answer. So if we are not truly connecting with people, then we can't understand what they might need to hear or need to answer or need to be asked. So that's by default, you have to have better connections with people to know what they might want to answer. So there's a few things, but yeah, I think the ability to ask quality questions is just so huge in business, in practice.
Yeah, I love that you've gone there and not knowing that detail. Again, having read some books on questions, and I'm obviously doing podcasts where I've got to ask questions and I'm trying to improve that process, again, experimenting as well. I love the fact of what's the one thing, again, being familiar with clockwork and the QBR. From a perspective, I wouldn't have thought, it's one of the first things that pops to my mind as far as where that goes. But when you sort of highlighted that, it reminded me of, again, what's your one key measurable? And if you're using that, then it shows a business and a practice that is super inquisitive, which again, in the health space, there's so much knowledge to be gleaned from asking brilliant questions. I love you sharing that. And even as you talk them through, I'm making the notes. It was also even the last one there of a question that people want to answer. And if I relay that to the home front where I got my kids out there, the first thing that sort of just popped in my mind is, okay, yeah, I always got to ask better questions with the kids and, not leave them as open-ended with the way that they think in the world. And it's just like, yeah, quite often that's the big one. Do they want to answer that question? Quite often it's no. And so again, it's much easier to see with our kids. But if you transfer that to the workplace, it's a bit harder to see that. You might get a feeling. It's being aware of that. And that's feedback at the end of the day, isn't it? And the whole idea of communication and feedback is so paramount to the idea of having systems, processes, being able to step away as the business owner and the like.
I think the buck always stops with us as a business owner. And so the ability to step back and say, okay, I asked a question, didn't get the response that seems productive to this conversation. You have to step back further and say, okay, how could I have asked a better question? And maybe, and again, we're still doing it without assumption or expectation, but how can I help that person better by kind of reframing what I'm saying? And sometimes they don't even give you an answer. So it might be, what have you noticed since you started care? And they'll go, oh, I'm not really sure. Maybe they've had these amazing results and they can list them, but often people are in the moment and they're thinking, and then they come back the next time and say, oh my gosh, I noticed that I can bend down with my kids more, which I couldn't do before. And they've had a chance to reflect afterwards. So a question isn't a one and done thing. The thought process continues if you can do an open-ended question.
Yeah, and I love that. Again, as you sort of, they were the three key ones that I put down is obviously about the thought process that underpins it, which is something which I try to do with this call is to delve that little bit deeper so that you can understand, because the more we understand that actually that's the process that people have gone down to come to their decision, the way it's done or how it's done, I think back to the year 8 mathematics where you had to show your workings and the like, it's not because they don't really care about the answer. You can still get 9 out of 10 if you just showed how you've actually done it. And if we can think about that with breaking down all the parts of our business. And again, we can't do it all at once, but each component at a time and break that down, then we're going to know processes like you're talking about, what you work on with people. We're going to know that it will lead to the outcomes that we're after. Again, if we've put it into the whole bigger picture of a wider experiment, and going back to the very initial question, the theory or the hypothesis that we might have, like we've got to have something because you need to anchor it to something. So going back to there, now that I've actually just thought of that, how do you work through that? Or do you have the initial idea and then how do you go from idea to execution?
I think that's the process of having a really clear filter. So does it align with our QBR? Again, that concept. So yeah, having that, which basically it's smaller than a so you've got a vision and a purpose, right? And that's kind of, you can have your values plastered on the wall and all that sort of stuff. But it's like, how do you meet that? That's what the QBR is. It's like, how are you doing that? And so always having that filter that every single one of our processes and procedures and ideas run through gives us the ability to go, okay, well, we'll weed that one out. We won't weed that one out. But the other thing is, which I know you would understand, the shiny object syndrome, and every idea is a great idea for a business owner, right? And it's
100%.
Exactly. Something like a toy box where you go, okay, every idea that comes in, I'm going to put it in my toy box. And if it's an amazing idea, it'll still be there to play with later. The other ones will fizzle out. So just having the discipline to be able to go, I'm putting it there. If it's worth it, it'll stick. Because it's easy to go, I've got an idea, I'm going to do it. One of the focuses as well that we do when we work with businesses is actually having happy teams. Like it's about team culture, right? And so the two most frustrated things that team members are like, is the continuous changing of direction from the business owner. So it is all those ideas, and it's low communication, poor communication. So they're like the two main things that annoy any team and disrupt culture. And so we can stop one of them by having a toy box, right? Park the idea. If it's good, it'll be there still.
That is such a brilliant experiment. That's an experiment that I am enacting straight off the back of this. So I've often thought of, again, I'm 100% that million ideas and all the rest of it. And I've typically used as a parking lot, and even an approach to doing things off learning from my mentor. Even a month ago was ideas cards, and then using that to help prioritize and frame out certain things. But I just love that analogy of the toy box. It's so true. And again, it's just that little tweak in thinking, and I will 100% be experimenting with, let's change my phraseology with the idea of, hey, it goes in my toy box. And yeah, if it does sit at the bottom of that for a fair while, and it's a way to have a bit more fun as well, it's far more fun than a parking lot or whatever, which means I'm more likely, the way my brain works is to engage with that idea and go, awesome, let's put that into the toy box and we'll see whether it comes back out at a later date. And again, I love hearing the way that you've talked through that. And it's just interesting to hear how that steps through, which ties into then how do we have happy teams? And if we have the happy teams and they feel as though they're getting dragged away because of these ideas, which 100% comes, I know when people go, the owner's going on a conference, and it's like, oh no, here we go. When they come back, they're going to have the million ideas and all the rest of it. And, it's this idea of them being able to, well, let's park that, let's put that into the toy box and it'll work out. So I love that.
Can I touch on something you just said as well?
Cool.
When you said checking in with like your coach or mentor or whatever, I think that's probably the other thing is like, have we got, because often running a business is isolating. It's kind of can be, the old lonely at the top thing. So having, I know some people refer to it as like their own personal board table. Like, who do you have? And we talked about this at the start. Like, who can you lean on to say, hang on, is my idea even good? Like, do I have people to bounce off? Who can I consult on my, personal board table? It's imaginary. Can I run it through these filters, these people that have different areas of expertise? Does it match my finances, my financial goals? Does it match my ultimate vision? Is it congruent with me, what I want to do ethically? So I think having those people to lean on makes a huge difference too in filtering ideas.
Yeah, so cool. And even if you've popped in that again, another idea of experimenting with people, that I'll take your little snippet there of the imaginary board at a certain point, at least just having that, because by doing even that thought process, you're stepping outside of yourself notionally to go, well, how does your board operate? The board would look at this in a different way. And then, as you and I are both very much aligned in the idea, and I know that you've worked with multiple people and had different people at part of your teams at different times, right? People for the right seasons or stage or whatever it is. We highly encourage people to have physical teams as well. But again, in the modern world, there's different ways of leveraging that. The idea of it you've touched upon for imaginary sort of board. There's even you could have AI sort of generated conversations can give you that different perspective. And then again, as human beings, we always want the personal touch, again, who other than physical people that can be those sounding boards and anchor points at the different stages and phases of business. So many, I got a page full of notes here already that, again, I've already plucked out a few of some key takeaways that I'm personally going to be taking. That's been absolutely brilliant. But I'd love for you to, again, we always want to share, that's been some of the experiments and the theory behind some of those. I'd love for you to share some of the transformation you've had with the coaching and helping people put some of these things actually into action.
I think, like I said at the start, I ultimately want people to be able to step out of their businesses, right? And so every one of our massive wins has been, how have we helped someone do that in a way that is aligned with their vision? So I met with a couple last week who run a business. One of them wants to do more board work and one of them wants to help mentor more students coming through the profession, right? And so we've always got these people in businesses that they don't just want to be their business. They're doing their business because they absolutely love it and they don't want to stop doing it, but they also want more, there's something, they want to make a bigger contribution, a bigger impact. They're the biggest wins, but my absolute favorite is, because this has kind of been my world for a long time as well, is getting women in business to a point they can take time off to have their babies. Getting businesses to a position that women don't feel like they have to sit there and run their business or process pays or Reddit or whatever while they've got a newborn sitting in their arms. And so that's what we've been helping people do. And I mean, we work on getting people a holiday, but the holiday is never really the ultimate thing. It's the ability, that's the test. Can you step away from your business and everything doesn't collapse? That's our ultimate measure of success when it comes to business. So getting some of the people that we've worked with maternity leave when they run their own business, completely unplugged time off, and then also supporting them to do, more bird work. We've got someone who wants to do more speaking gigs because she wants to get her message more out there. So now she travels more because she doesn't have to worry about being on the ground running her business.
So good. And again, I can just picture those and got some little goosebumps happening on the arms as you sort of mentioning it again, knowing that power of, because working with business owners, and no doubt you've done it as well. You've worked with the business owners who are working during that time of just had a bar, but still need business to take over and do certain things because you can't run without them at that point. And that's tough. That's hard for anyone. And again, being parents, as we both are, it's like, you know how hard that is. The mental, the physical strain that can put on anybody is just a tough ask. So being able to set things up so that people don't have to worry about it, and the word you use there of totally unplug, that is transformational. It's a huge change for anybody.
As well in health practices, we're looking for those small changes all the time, right? And so it's the same in this. Like, yesterday I got on a call and like me and this person both getting teary because she said, I actually went to my daughter's gymnastics competition on the weekend, and usually I'm trying to work on the weekend. And I went and I watched and I sat there, I didn't take my laptop, so we're getting like emotional going like, that's such a huge thing in a family's life. So the things that keep you going, right?
Big, 100%. And that's why we're here. You want to share stories like that of seeing transformation, what is possible and has happened. You help people do it day in, day out. And for that, we thank you. And we want more awesome allied health practices out there, having these sustainable businesses that do enable the business owner to be able to step away from that business so that they can do these other, no doubt, amazing things they want to do, whether it's family related, whether it's impact related, whatever it is. And so really, really appreciate you sharing what you've shared today. Time has flown and so many gold nuggets there. So thank you again, Alexandra, for your time in sharing your insights.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm sure there'll be plenty more chats between us.
Yeah, I was about to say, we'll have plenty of chats. We'll continue to have more chats.
Exactly.
And as this experiment of this podcast continues to evolve, I've already got plenty of people, including yourself, that I'd love to have back for multiple chats because there's so many different avenues and tangents that we can go down. But in the meantime, while people wait for the potential next episode that we might do together, where's the best place for people to find you and connect with you?
Our website is www.theefficiencylab.com.au. I'm on LinkedIn just as Alexandra Sim, and Instagram, The Efficiency Lab.
Awesome. As always, we'll pop those links into our show notes so that people can connect from there. But I do highly recommend having a chat with Alex to be able to understand, even going back to asking better questions and finding ways to be able to help that, to leverage that opportunity to then step outside of the business more and work on the business rather than in the business. And as you alluded to, jump and check out the Clockwork book. It's a brilliant book to start a little bit of a stepping stone to that as well. So that's it. Over and out from the Healthy Business Lab podcast for another amazing episode. My brain's ticking over and that's where I'm sort of processing. Is there any more gold nuggets you need to drop there? But again, make sure you like, subscribe, so that you don't miss out on hearing the great insights that we have from our amazing guests. So one last time, Alexandra, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Craig.
Thank you for listening to the Healthy Business Lab podcast. Make sure you subscribe to keep up to date with all the latest episodes.